Venezuela has, of today, the highest inflation in the world.
Venezuelans today cannot eat. You see people eating from the garbage.
Hospitals that have massive deaths of newborns, and there is no access to medication.
The economy is going into a spiral of dysfunctionality.
Venezuela, a country with the highest number of Miss Universe title holders and was once ranked as the fourth richest country globally, now stands as a stark example of a nation that has tragically lost its prosperity just because of lavishing heavy subsidies on its people. This tragic turn of events is not a mere twist of fate, rather it is a direct result of well-intentioned yet economically disastrous government policies. Despite sitting on the world's largest oil reserves and contributing nearly 18% to global reserves, Venezuela is currently grappling with a severe economic disaster. Today, 96% of its population is struggling from poverty, and prices of basic goods doubled every 19 days on average, putting everyday necessities like bread essentially out of reach for the majority of the population. The situation has reached such a critical point that the country can't extract its abundant oil resources. For much of the past decade, in fact, economists called Venezuela's collapse the worst in the world. So how did a country with such vast oil wealth go so terribly wrong? This is a story of Venezuela, the worst economy ever to exist. In 1970, Venezuela ranked among the world's 20 richest nations, but now it is counted among the top 20 poorest countries. People there are struggling so much that they can't even afford basic things like food and medicine, so they are turning to crime like theft, abduction, blackmailing, and even murder just to get the money they need. Things have gotten so bad that the capital, Caracas, is considered one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Now, you might be wondering how a country with the world's largest oil reserves can be so poor. So let's understand this in detail. Venezuela has a ton of oil, more than 303 billion barrels, which is 7 times what the US has. Back in 1999, when Hugo Chavez became Venezuela's president, the price of oil started going up, as you can see in the graph. Venezuela's economy depends only on oil, and when the prices went up, the government earned a lot of revenue. At one point, the price even hit $100 per barrel, and that meant big bucks for Venezuela. But Mr. Hugo Chavez used this money for things like helping people with social activities and providing cheaper food.
This was seen very much so as, a man of the people, the poorer people, and he identified with them and he loved them, and they loved him.
Even when he didn't have enough money, he borrowed some from Russia and China to keep these programs going. But as you know, China never helps anyone for free. They bought a lot of oil from Venezuela at lower prices than market rates. Even though oil prices kept going up after 1999 because of high demand in rapidly growing economies like China and India, Venezuela's oil production capacity continued to decrease. The main reason for this is that Chavez didn't invest in improving its oil production facilities. Oil was like a cash cow for the Venezuelan government, providing a whopping 95% of their revenue. Surprisingly though, they didn't really invest in making this cash cow even more productive or create more sources of income. Instead, they put all their money into subsidies and social programs. Then something unexpected hit them. Oil prices started falling, and the government's money started drying up. In 2013, the president at the time, Hugo Chavez, died of cancer after leading the country for 15 years. His right-hand man, Mr. Nicolas Maduro, stepped in as the new president, and he couldn't manage the country well.
The biggest sucker in Venezuelan history is the guy who's going to follow Chavez as president. And that's exactly what happened.
During Chavez's time, the government had lowered the prices of everything, even below the actual manufacturing cost. This might have sounded good for people buying stuff, but it caused problems later. Private companies couldn't afford to make things. So many companies, especially those making medicines and food products, stopped their production. As a result, the government had to import all essential items. It's like they put all their eggs in one basket with oil, and when that basket got a hole, things started to go wrong.
The period of the oil boom from 2004 to 2014 to sextuple the public debt.
As oil prices went up, Venezuela spent it all. They didn't set any money aside in a sovereign wealth fund and a rainy day fund, so they got money in case things go down.
As oil prices took a nosedive, the Venezuelan government faced challenges in offering subsidies and importing essential items like food and medicine. This led to a severe food crisis in the country. Struggling to make ends meet, some women even resorted to selling their hair or engaging in prostitution to earn a few bucks. Simultaneously, there's been a rise in unconventional practices like witchcraft and grave robbery. In the more prosperous days, Venezuelans used to bury their deceased with valuables like gold and money. Now, with the economic downturn, there's a disturbing trend of people robbing graves and selling the stolen bones and valuables on the black market. Venezuela's GDP has been dropping rapidly since 2013. During this economic crunch, the government made another big mistake by printing a large amount of money to keep things running. You may know that this move can lead to hyperinflation, because printing more money requires solid backing, like gold. In 2019, the Venezuelan government disclosed inflation numbers that shocked the world. The inflation rate soared to a staggering 1,300,000%. Yes, you can see in the graph. The economy shrank by 75% between 2014 and 2020. This hyperinflation has led to peculiar scenarios, like taxi drivers earning more than doctors, because taxi drivers could increase their rates. But how would a doctor raise their salary? The value of Venezuela's currency, the bolivar, was decreasing so rapidly that people started spending it quickly. They began buying appliances like refrigerators and electronics. Back in 2010, $1 used to be equal to 8 bolivars in Venezuela. But fast forward to 2020, and it's more than 13,000 bolivars. Stores stopped taking bolivars, and the government tried controlling prices, but it backfired. So chaos ensued. Protests, thefts, and people literally fighting for toilet paper. To deal with the chaos, the government had to limit when people could go to the supermarket. They even installed fingerprint scanners so that a person could buy things only once. Why? Because some folks were buying a bunch of stuff at low prices and then selling them for more on the black market. But that's not all. Venezuela faced another big problem when the US decided to put sanctions on its gold mining industry, oil industry, and central banks. This made it super hard for Venezuela to trade with other countries. About 20% of the population, nearly 5.9 million people, had to leave the country since 2014 to find a better life. You might be thinking, why doesn't Venezuela become rich again by extracting more oil? Well, Venezuela has a lot of oil, but it faces challenges in extracting it due to a shortage of skilled labor. In 2002, Hugo Chavez replaced skilled workers with his favorites, and many skilled workers left the country due to poor conditions. The country also lacks advanced technology for heavy crude oil extraction, and its outdated infrastructure hampers exports. US import sanctions also added to the problems. And when the government felt the heat, instead of fixing things, they started blaming their own people. Mr. Maduro even said that the country was in this mess because people were buying unnecessary things from supermarkets.
And in the end, Maduro can wipe his hands clean of as much as he wants, but he is the president. So he becomes the one who is responsible. Basically,
Venezuela is like a person who wins a lottery and spends, thinking that the money is never gonna end, until it does. And now they're at rock bottom with no savings. Today, their economy is on a ventilator, and it is an example of the worst economic disaster in modern history just because of corruption, bad economic policies, mismanagement, and favoritism. Do you think that Venezuela can recover again? Tell us in the comments.